At all cost, Indians are paying in the name of Hindu Rashtra. Hello and welcome to Inventiva. This is Sonia Ghatraj back again with the big news. India's history reeks of evidence and claims in opposition to what communism does to growth, and we just do not seem to learn before anybody comes up with how the ideology of creation of the Hindu Rashtra hasn't explicitly been mentioned by the supreme leader or the ruling party. A look back at the ruling government's action would make it clear as to what we are referring to. The pillars of India are set to be formed on the fundamentals of inclusivity, growth and secularism, parameters which may seem to have long forgotten in our race of winning people over by dividing them. Divide and rule haven't been the long of an incident for us, has it? Nonetheless, the purpose of this article is not to debate if the ideology of the ruling government is inclined towards preservance and the dominance of the Hindutva. While adopting the secular roots of the country through decent and operation, it is to pick out shades of evidence between the two parts to show how Hindutva or any religious dominance for that matter goes in opposite direction to economic growth and democracy, the two very spirits of India. With the intent of movement towards a Hindu Rashtra shouting loud enough to defame, India, with the advance of Narendra Modi's led NDA government, has lost way too much in terms of growth, reputation and global position. As a matter of fact, with the worst religious intolerance seen in the decades and the least growth prospects for an emerging country like India, the eventually losers in both the depressing scenario have been the people of the country. A religious democracy hampers the very essence of democracy, for a religion deems fit to restrict, confine and control. Religious fix boundaries, and when the laws and the actions are determined by those ideologies, they in turn come out to be exactly as restrictive. After all, the changing tolerance levels of the country did not come out of anywhere. Internet shutdown, religious intolerance, imprisoning, dissension, objecting and discrediting opinions, and ignorance to premier issue and the protesters. These factors define the Narendra Modi-led NDA government's rule, and there is no denying that. The Supreme Leader particularly has been the flag bearer for this change, reigning as the protagonist of RSS before the term, as the leader of the country speaks on the behalf of his authorities and the dictator actions. A democracy gives freedom and opinions, authorism takes that away. Unsolicited reorganization of the state, sedition charge and the anti-national tag imposition on activists and dissenters have just evaporated the party's ideology. Impression furthers. The ruling party, communism, by definition operates through attempts to construct religious or ethnic identity, incites traffic in between the people identified as different communists, and stimulates communal violence between those groups. The COVID-19 led misinformation that created a wave of the religious simulation in the country has been a result of the aforementioned phenomenon only. This has led and had the economic as well as the global impacts on the country. The political instability and volatile environment of the country has significantly hampered the global image of the country, pushing down the foreign investment protest of the country by a significant amount. One of the most important parameters defining ease of the business and opportunities in a country is the nature of the political business, which in India has been severely volatile for quite some time. Not only that, but the economic protests of the country have also been fairly limited, with growth plunging in as low as it could. While the biggest problem with the NDA's government economic strategy is that their outcomes are completely devoid of the basic understanding of the economic discipline. Covering up and improper acknowledgement have been the cause of further aggravative decoys. The political interference and a constricted sector of beneficiaries are deterring to the growth of the Indian economy, and the common men have been the victims of it, with the unemployment rate in double digits and the inflation soaring way too high. A prospering economy is marked by innovation, research and stability. The three fundamentals the Indian economy completely lacks at this point. The communism ideologies of the ruling government have had a terrible impact on the innovation and research parameters of the country, since the allocation of the budgetary expenditure to the field has been fairly limited, in contradiction to what the experts have suggested all this while. Religious bring confinement and limitations in activities and the process. It instructs what should or should not be done. Thus is why the governments with religious democracy and communism ideologies pretend to this authoritarian patterns as opposed to the freedom, equality and fraternity patterns of democracy. It is not only damaging in global and economic terms, as mentioned above, but also impaired the soundness of the economy. The characteristics of fascination, xenophobia, nationalism and constriction show evident in the current regime have been rooted because of the aim of the ruling party to create a Hindu Rashtra, something that India was never set out to be. All of these points mentioned just to point at how a Hindu Rashtra as its course would destroy the dream of India our forefathers had seen for us during the creation of the great country. Religion and growth do not go hand in hand, and developing nation needs to stay away from this restricting nation as much as possible. The religious establishment seek to erode other opinions, schools of thoughts and walk on the path of the majoritarian and dominant nature, which is exactly why our Indians trying to run out away from right now. What was the last time governments won the election through promise of the religion and not economy? The rich of the country is getting richer, and economic favoritism of the ruling government along with the influence on political action and are evident from the way of the country has emerged out of the pandemic in 2020 and is dealing with the crisis in 2021. The ideologies of a Hindu Rashtra are in contrast with the economic growth opportunities India has. No progress is possible if we continue to choose the former. The citizens have witnessed and the impact of the religious divide once, and what we are seeing today is just a potential version of another such catastrophic. Let us make a change before it gets too late.